True Story Media.
Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life, on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
It's baseball, but so much more. Go bananas for Banana Ball with ESPN on Disney+. The greatest show in sports.
Are you kidding me?
Is the phenomenon everyone's talking about.
The trick play to the plate.
Catch the Savannah Bananas and other fan favorite teams all season long with select games streaming with ESPN on Disney+.
Let's go!
U.S. residents, 18 plus only. Select Banana Ball games available to all Disney Plus subscribers. Terms apply.
Previously on Pretend, we introduced you to the New Testament Christian Churches of America, a church that sets up shop outside military bases and recruits young service members at their most vulnerable. We heard from former members who say that the organization uses textbook cult tactics like mind control, total isolation, financial control. Tracy Pelfrey was one of those members. Here she is talking about the time she turned herself over to God at a non-NTCC church.
I went to a church service with my brother, and something happened that night. Something really crazy happened, and my life changed.
Tracy Pelfrey was stationed in the Philippines in the 1980s. She was 25 when she was recruited by NTCC.
What I found was just a group of people that didn't put pressure on anybody. There was no pressure. There was a lot of love and a lot of charity and a lot of reaching people, and not like, let's go get them in church. It wasn't about that. It was just about spreading the word.
Tracy says that growing up, she never wanted for anything. She grew up in an upper middle class home with plenty of food, clothes. She had everything.
But there was no love there. There was a lot of abuse, verbal, physical abuse. And so to hear about this love, unconditional love, I didn't know that. And I was surrounded now by new people who just liked me and loved me just like as part of their fellowship of believers.
Tracy Pelfrey spent 17 years at NTCC, and she says that it wasn't always so culty.
I've been the staunch defender of the group. I'm uniquely qualified to understand both mindsets, and I have compassion and understanding for those who are in.
Back when she first joined NTCC, she says that things were different.
We would have services and Bible studies. There was no quote unquote soul winning at the time. That wasn't even a thing in the organization yet. But I recall one night he was sitting there having a Bible study, teaching about souls, and he said, "Let's go. Let's get out there." Everybody wandering around, and we were up there, too, to talk to people, and we prayed with some.
But slowly, things started to change.
Then we had to show up for soul-winning meetings, and now all of a sudden, there's going to be this organized effort, and we all have to have a notebook and a pen. I sat there listening to that. I was like, I don't like this. This sounds like sales. Like, we were being told, so you're going to write the name down of everybody you're visiting. And I'm like, who am I visiting? I just have friends, you know? I have people I meet on base for various reasons. I have people I see in the barracks, and I go by and chat with them or sit with them at lunch or something. So he was telling us, well, this is how it was going to be, and we would put the name down, and after 3 times of visiting them and all, they didn't come out, then we dropped them from the list. I was appalled. I was literally just sitting there like feeling dead inside.
But she stayed anyway. Balancing NTCC and her responsibilities as a soldier started to get really complicated because in December 1989, rebel planes dive-bombed the Philippines president's private guest house in Manila.
I get the call that there is this coup attempt, and we're going to be, like, pretty much most of the base is going to be an integral part of helping the government and the current regime to protect them. So I couldn't tell anybody that. I couldn't call off base, hey, I'm not going to be there. We're going to be involved with a coup attempt. We weren't supposed to say anything to anybody. So I went to the squadron. So I get a call from Jean Keys. She was dubious about what I was really doing. I guess she thought I was just skipping out, but I could not say why I was out. So she said, well, I thought you loved the Lord, and you were dedicated. And I'm getting this while I'm doing my job. I'm in the military, lady. And so I was really getting frustrated. But did I leave? No, because I'm an idiot.
17 years later, Tracy and her now ex-husband finally made their move.
I hate looking back. I think that's why just leading up to today, it felt like the weight of all the times I should have left and didn't. When we left, we didn't even call it a cult.
Tracy Pelfrey is now one of the most vocal ex-members speaking out about NTCC. And according to CEO Michael Kekel, that makes her public enemy number 1.
It's when I realized, oh my God, we were in a cult.
What does malevolent mean? Wow, what a definition we have of malevolent. Woo! Malicious, spiteful, hostile, evil-minded, baleful, bitter.
That rant went on for a full minute.
Malign, malignant, rancorous, vicious, vindictive, revengeful, vengeful, pernicious, cruel, fierce, nasty, unfriendly, unkind, and ill-natured. That's why I named our favorite enemy M-Rat. Malevolent, racy Tracy. On the attack again.
But why would Kekel hate Tracy so much? It could be because Tracy, along with former members, former pastors, pastors' wives, have all left NTCC telling the same exact story. Last episode, we talked about how the church controls its congregation, where you live, where you go, who you love. Today, we are going to follow the money. Behind the soul winning and the sermons and the bylaws, there is a very well-funded business. And like any lucrative business, someone is getting rich. I'm Javier Leyva, and this is Pretend. Stories about real people pretending to be someone else. Sometimes you just have to be honest with yourself, and I am not a good dancer, I'm not good at sports, and I am not good at shopping and buying clothes for myself. So thank God for Quince. Because Quince sponsors this show, I decided, hey, you know what? Spring is here. I need some new clothes. So I made the leap and I bought this European linen relaxed short sleeve shirt, and I love it. I also got myself a t-shirt, 100% Pima cotton. Wasn't sure what that was until I opened up the package, and it turned out to be the softest thing I've ever felt. The quality is really good. The prices are more than fair, and it feels like you're buying something like really fancy. So go ahead, if you've heard me or other podcasters talk about Quince, go and check it out, because they're 100% European linen shorts, and shirts are starting at $34. I'm telling you, this stuff is lightweight, breathable, and this was the surprising part. It doesn't wrinkle into a mess the second you sit down. But here's the deal. This is why I really like this company, because Quince works directly with ethical factories and they cut out the middleman. And that's why they come in 50 to 80% less than comparable brands without skimping on quality or the material. So refresh your everyday with luxury that you'll actually use. Head on over to quince.com/pretendpod for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/pretendpod for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/pretendpod. Have you listened to the Jordan Harbinger show? Because if not, you're missing out. Because if you like this show, you'll definitely like the Jordan Harbinger show. I always tell people Jordan Harbinger is like my big brother in podcasting. I want to be him when I grow up. No, but seriously, I've been fortunate enough to be a guest on Jordan's show. We talked about romance scams, and it was awesome. This man is a great interviewer. He has amazing guests on his show. Just recently, I listened to an episode called How Fear Separates Saints from Psychopaths, which is a topic that I find fascinating because that's what Pretend's all about, right? It's about studying these people's psychology. Well, Jordan had a guest that talked about many famous studies, including the Stanford experiment, the Milgram shock test, and the Kitty Genovese story that turns out was either deeply flawed or outright fabricated. So if you are into interesting topics all the way around, from sports, politics, even some true crime, you got to check out the Jordan Harbinger Show. Search The Jordan Harbinger Show, that's Harb as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Staying inside NTCC isn't just about faith, it's about fear. Tracy explains.
You're made to believe, and this holds true in any cult, in any kind of cult, anywhere, is when they have you believe, especially concerning God, that if the voice is contrary to what we are saying, it is of the devil. So then you think, well, my heart and everything is telling me to get out of here. But is that the devil?
What are some of the things that Kekel says about you publicly?
Oh, well, he's had whole services where he's talked about silly women going from house to house, saying things, and he found out some people there were talking to me. He was talking one time about a whole service about wine cellars and how I was in my cellar whining.
Living in the WHINE cellar. But Christians who live in the wine cellar have too much vitamin H, because that's their kind of wine. It has an H added to it.
Vitamin hate, I suppose?
It's like, dude, try to find me whining one place. I know Mike Kekel. So he's changed through the years. He's always been kind of a punk. You know, he's got that kind of punk way about him. He'll say it. He'll say it. He has it. But he's just so cruel to people. And he didn't know how many people were sending me screenshots of texts they had with him.
Do you think it's fair to say that they target primarily military personnel?
That is where their bread and butter is, for sure.
So that's by design, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Why do you think, why military?
It's how so many of us were reached. We're in the military. And they set up a home away from home, sort of.
And I keep saying that this is kind of like the perfect cult, right? Because military people are in such a vulnerable place in their lives. It's unlike college student. It's a little bit like college students because like college, you go away for the first time. But these are people making money. They're in a different country most of the time. And they are highly susceptible to authority. Now, looking back, it all made sense. This was more than just about believing. This is more than just about righteousness. This was all about the money. In most churches, tithing is a tradition based on the Bible, giving 10% of your income to support the church and the poor. It's usually seen as voluntary, but at NTCC, it's expected.
I've been tithing 10%, given all my money. I don't have any money left at the end of the month.
And one of the higher-ups made sure everyone understood the rules.
He came to me after that Bible study and said, I see here that there's no record of you paying tithe. I said, I have been. I've just put it in the basket. Yeah, but this is the way it has to work. And so you're going to have to pay back tithe. And so 20% is added as well. And yet there I was, not only paying tithe, not only giving offerings, but back tithe, which is the tithe plus 20%. It's not a thing.
Let me introduce you to Bruce Smith, a Washington State reporter who has been covering NTCC for almost 20 years on his blog called The Mountain News.
I covered NTCC because I was the Graham Washington reporter for a newspaper called The Dispatch. What is that church that no one talks about and looks very mysterious, and it's very large, and it's behind a lot of fences? They're like 8-foot-high cyclone fences.
The way you described the church was like everybody knows about it, but nobody knows about it, right? Nobody wants to ask questions.
Everybody knows about it, but everybody knows nothing about it.
And there's a reason for that.
So this church behind the fence is not only a physical experience, but it's also very much a metaphor for the culture, is that we need to pull together and hang together and defend ourselves against them, the outside. And so
Is the fence to keep people out or to keep people in?
well, it does work both ways, because if you leave that community, you're shunned. You're an 18-year-old guy in the Army, buck private. You're in Korea. You grew up in an evangelical church, having a good Sunday meal with the family, eating the really good cornbread that only your mama can make, all right? And you're in Korea, and you start to have an anxiety attack because you're so far away from home. You are so lonely. There's nobody that you can talk to. You're sitting in your bunk in a barracks, and you see Jesus come and sit next to you and put his arm around you. And it's very real. What do you do with that experience? The guys that have those kinds of personal experiences find a home at the NTCC. And they have to find a place somewhere. They have to find a home somewhere. And so the NTCC provides a vital service for guys like that. Now, do they go too far in a lot of other ways, start taking money from them and from the military? And yeah, I'm sure, there's a lot of slimy, slippery dynamics that come into this. But guys who are having really profound spiritual experiences have got to find a place to call home.
That's another interesting point, right? Because when somebody might see that as recruitment, as love bombing, which is a quality that, or like a feature of a cult, right? You have to love bomb, you have to recruit. If they stop there, then that's a good thing, right? Like if all they did was that, then they're doing a great service to that community, right? A home away from home, right?
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
But it doesn't stop there, obviously.
No, it keeps on going.
Because once they have you, the church wants something in return.
I grew up kind of spiritual in New York as a Catholic, but we didn't have a thing called tithing. I'd heard of it, but in the evangelical community, it's a big deal. It's a real commitment to your faith. And each member of the New Testament Christian Church was expected to give 10% of their monies earned before taxes. And you were expected to contribute. Give till it hurts was the phrase that I was told, that people felt that they were compelled to give till it hurt. For me, it was a little hard to ascertain, because once I started asking these kinds of questions, Kekel clammed up on me. They just would hang up the phone.
Well, I pay my tithe. Well, wonderful. The tithe belongs to the preacher. When you don't pay your tithe, you stole it from him. It's up to him to put it back where it belongs.
This is the voice of R.W. Davis, the founder of NTCC.
Now, around here, I don't have any problem. I tell them what to do with the tithe. The tithe belongs to me. I don't even want to pastor you. If you don't take enough of me to pay me tithe, I wouldn't even want you around me. You old hypocrite.
Former members say that NTCC wants more than just your soul. They want your bank account, too. It says so right here in the bylines. Ministers are required to keep an up-to-date tithing record.
You have a steady paycheck. If they know your rank, then they know how much money you make and how much you should be tithing.
So if you're not paying the full 10%, you're already in debt to the church. Fall behind 90 days and you go before the general board for a good talking to. Another 60 days after that and you lose your credentials entirely. At NTCC, debt isn't just a financial problem, it's a sign of disgrace.
Because they know the paycheck is coming. It's the military. It's why you're extended credit for cars and everything else when you're in the military. They all prey upon the military. If you go outside most military bases in the States, that's what you're going to see. Pawn shops and anything that is an on-time payment. So it's a steady paycheck.
If you're a new recruit in the military, you're not making much to begin with. $28,000 a year, maybe? And if you live off base at the NTCC serviceman home, you still have to pay rent.
How these houses are built, they're all built with free labor from the community, from the congregation.
And that's interesting because, okay, so they're a church, right? And they are generally tax exempt, right, if it's church-owned property. Yet they're tithing, right? Like they're collecting all this money from the congregation. Where's that money going?
I don't know.
I'm fascinated by the whole franchise aspect of it because, like, let's say you're in South Carolina, you go to McDonald's and you get French fries, and then you go to Oregon and you get French fries, and they taste exactly the same, right? And that continuity, I think, is what makes franchises like McDonald's so successful. It's like, how do you have this franchise of churches and maintain control over them without losing, your grip?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned McDonald's. Whenever I think of NTCC, I'm like, that is exactly how they are set up. They go around. They actually don't visit all the churches. They have these fellowship meetings and things, but they can look in on the church streaming. They are a corporation. In fact, Davis taught us that. This is a corporation. It's a business. But then he tries to tell you it's God's business. Even Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. And you're sitting there taking notes like, I don't think that's what he meant by that. I don't think Jesus went out and started incorporating. And so then what happens is, then they bring them into their little Bible school thing, and they make sure you're not learning anything. Trust me, it's busy work. And it is indoctrination.
But everyone has to go here, right? So, like, let's say you're in Vermont, you're going to go to Washington State.
Yes, if you're going to be a minister in their organization, there's no other way. You can't just be out in let's say in a state, there's a lot of states they've never even stepped foot in, and say, oh, I'm called to preach. Oh, no, you have to come up to our Bible school first, and you have to get licensed through us. So in the same way you walked into a McDonald's at the time, like, hi, can I help you? You want to try this or that? It's the same thing. And no one can deviate. And if you do, you're going to hear about it. And I've played the clip of him saying, it's a corporation. We expect things from you. And I gave some of you 6 months. We're looking at the charts and spreadsheets. And he talked about stickers on a chart and gold stars.
I can't recall the last time I saw a preacher, the head of a church, refer to themselves as the CEO.
Yeah.
I just think that's interesting because
it's the weirdest thing. They have an executive board and you're like, what is this for? What is the point of you? It's paperwork, it's process, it's everything that, if someone's in trouble, you're going to go before the board. I had to go before the board once. I was scared out of my mind.
Listen to exactly what he tells his followers.
Just on this church campus, we have a tax exemption as a 501c3 organization and charity. We are legit. And our fellowship, they will only let us have a couple buildings. If you were down south, man, they would exempt all the buildings and pay for your haircut and your lunch. Not up here in this liberal communist stronghold.
He's complaining to the congregation about the crushing taxes that the local government places on the church.
Is this okay? It's exactly what we're living in. The fellowship hall alone is $25,000 a year in property tax.
For a devoted congregation that's trained to never ask questions, a $25,000 tax bill just to keep the basic fellowship hall open sounds like an absolute outrage, doesn't it? Of course they're going to keep the tithing going, but there's a massive problem with Kekel's story. He's dead wrong. Either Pastor Michael Kekel thinks that his followers are a bunch of idiots and is lying straight to their faces, or he is truly misinformed. Remember Sarah DeYoung from part 1? She was a Navy CB who was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. Well, Sarah pulled the actual Pierce County auditor tax records, and she exposed the truth behind that $25,000 massive tax bill.
He said, we're like $25,000. And I'm like, that is not true. There are no taxes on the fellowship hall. You can look on the record and see they paid $9.65. The church paid $9. That's no taxes.
The county records reveal, and I confirmed, that that tax bill is for a multi-million-dollar personal mansion that's currently under the name of Michael Kekel's wife, Tanya Kekel.
Like, the members don't know that because they've been so trained not to ask any questions.
Now that Sarah's out of NTCC, it's clear that this is a case of the haves and the have-nots.
The leaders live in such luxury, and the members, it is very common that a lot of them will donate blood plasma just to stay afloat. They're that poor. Yeah, everybody was just poor. Thrift store shopping, couponing, free bread from the grocery stores that the stores donated to the church, probably for the hungry, but it was really going to us.
Meanwhile, Michael Kekel was standing at the pulpit complaining about the church's tax burden. What he forgot to mention was the sweet deal he got on his luxury home. Actually, his second luxury home. I'm going to keep this as simple as possible because property taxes can be really boring. Imagine someone sells you a property and tells you that it's just a concrete slab. Nothing is built on it, so you get it cheap, right? But when you get there, there's a 4,500 square foot house sitting on top of that slab. Sweet deal, right? Well, that's what the records show when NTCC sold this second property to Michael Kekel. In 2009, a luxury home was built for the Kekels inside the church's private neighborhood. For the next 14 years, that property stayed legally in the church's name, meaning that tax bills were sent directly to the church. Then, 14 years later, in 2023, the property was officially transferred out of the church's name and into Michael Kekel and Tanya Kekel's personal names for $341,000. Their justification was that the property had, quote, only a foundation installed at the time. But Former members call this one expensive foundation. Now here's where it gets interesting for nonprofits. Because churches don't pay certain taxes, the government has one basic rule. The money and assets a church owns must be used for the church's mission. Leadership is not allowed to use it to enrich themselves. So if Michael Kekel used church funds to cover 14 years of property taxes on his personal home, that's a problem. The legal term for that is called private inurement, which is just a fancy way of saying a pastor is sneaking in the church's money into his own pocket. And I'm not saying that's what happened. Michael Kekel claims that he paid all the taxes himself, but only a tax audit would confirm that. So what we do know is that instead of putting the property on the open market, the church transferred it directly to Michael Kekel at a price set 14 years earlier. And 6 months after that transfer, Michael Kekel moved the deed again, and this time into his personal LLC, Willard Properties. Why would he do that? Maybe he wanted some privacy, which is a legitimate reason to put a home in an LLC. Or maybe he didn't want his congregation asking too many questions about that sweet deal. It's all very bizarre. Next time on Pretend, we are going to switch gears. According to former members, NTCC fosters a culture where adult men courting teenage girls isn't just tolerated, it's encouraged.
She was 12. He started grooming her when I think she was like 8 years old or younger.
The fact that ministers date young teenagers, that you have men in their 20s dating girls who are 14 and 15. And that's encouraged by the church and encouraged by the parents.
We spent 2 episodes talking about how NTCC controls its members. But here's the thing. When you create an environment where nobody asks questions and nobody talks, you're creating the perfect cover for the worst kinds of people. In the next episode, former members say that the church didn't just fail to protect its youngest members. They say it protected the people who were hurting them. That's next time on Chain of Command. All right, so that was part 2 of Chain of Command. I would love to know what you guys think. In fact, I've already started getting comments on Spotify and Patreon about this series, and a lot of people are under the impression that, oh, this is a story that took place a long time ago and it's not happening today. Well, no, it is happening today. Just look up the church. If you live anywhere near a military base, the chances are there's going to be an NTCC church. And I also want to hear from former or current military personnel. Have you heard about this church? And if you're a former member and you're listening to this and want to chime in, send me an email, javier@pretendradio.org. I want to thank some of our new Patreon supporters: Tammy T-Rex, love the name, Becky Peabody, Katie Guybean, Brittany Fox, Stephen Mayer, Annalise Batia, Angel Hargis, Shannon Gerber, and Sarah Gamer. Thank you so much for supporting this show. It means a whole lot to me. And also, if you want to listen to ad-free episodes and you listen on Apple Podcasts, check out Pretend Plus. It is a free trial, so you can check out and get early unreleased episodes. Part 3 and Part 4 of Chain of Command are coming out soon, so you'll be the first to listen to it. That's all I got for today. Today's episode was written and produced by me, Javier Leyva. It was edited by the talented Puneeth Shenoy with the podcast pundits. All right, that's all I got. Take care.